Hello and welcome back to the channel. So the weekend is almost upon us, which means that the next round of fixtures is about to come out. And as Liverpool will kick off their first home fixture against Brentford on Sunday, I think it's just about time that we start predicting the starting lineup. So what we're going to do is take everyone over to the trusty Football Manager screen. And from here, we are going to predict our starting lineup. So I've altered the team lineup to kind of look a little bit more like how we played in the opening game against Ipswich. So what I originally thought was that we'd have the double pivot with Gravenberch kind of here, and then Alexis McAllister here, and then Szoboszlai a bit more advanced kind of like here. However, what we actually saw was that we started a bit more like this. So I think we will do the same again, obviously having the home fixture. I think that we will try and be on the front foot from the start. We'd expect to start the game the way we finished the last game against Ipswich. And I think that will mean that we'll see a few changes, a few little tweaks in the way that we play. But let's dive into it and then we'll start picking the team. So in goal, no surprises. I believe it's going to be Alisson. And I also think Trent carries on at right back. I think Trent, especially in the second half, he had a good game. Obviously, you know, we all speak about the pass before the pass. We know what he can do with the ball. And I would like to see him start the game in that way. I think, though, saying that he had a bad game kind of downplays the impact that Ipswich had on us. So obviously they went man for man. They were constantly marking us. And they always had a player in this kind of central role that whenever Trent got the ball, he was looking to get out to him and close him down as quickly as possible. Obviously always being there to prevent Trent from being able to come to his inside position to make that double pivot with Gravenberch. So hopefully, if we can make the tactical changes that we did at the half time and we can look to try and get Trent a lot more involved in the game from the start, we can start to see him play and, utilise his range of passing and his ability on the ball from the very start. I also think that we're going to see from the very start Virgil van Dijk, no surprise there. But also, I think he's going to be partnered with, if I can find him on here, Konate. I think, there's obviously been a lot of talk this week about Joao Kwanzaa, and I made a video about some comments that were made about Arne Slot throwing him under the bus. I don't think he did. I still don't think he was thrown under the bus, but I think that what Slot would have learnt is that against these more physical type Premier League teams, he's going to want to rely more on his physical type defender, and I do think that that will be Konate. I've said before and I'll say it again, I think that if we were going to play a game where we want the defence to be, passing the ball around and, pinging it one side to the other, then Kwanzaa is better, with the ball at his feet and being able to pass. But if you want to have a bit more of, say, a physical type defender to match up against those physical type players, then Konate is that guy. I think Konate, obviously, he's a bigger player. He's a much more physical specimen. He's better in the tackle. And one thing I think Konate does well as well is cover this right back position if Trent does go forward. So I think that, Brentford, they are quite a physical team. They will probably look to, mix it up with us and get balls into their strikers and try and hold it up and, lay it off to bring other players into it. That's why Konate, for me, would probably be the better choice in this game. So I think he will start with him there. Left back, I think we're going to see Andy Robertson. I do think there is an argument that that Tsimikas can have now to say that he probably deserves to start a game. I'll wait for that weird car noise to go past. And I do think it's kind of warranted because I do think, I've said it before, Tsimikas had a really good preseason, in my opinion. And I also think that with that and having a good preseason, he also seemed to adopt much better to the style of player that Slot obviously wants and what he expects from his players. So I do think that there is an argument for Tsimikas to say, well, I should start. But I think that because Robertson missed a lot of the preseason, he will also want to play himself back into fitness and back into form. And I think that that's something that Slot will be thinking as well. The more time that he can get Robertson involved, the more games he can play, if he can play himself back into fitness, I think that he'll be looking for that. So, we'll stick with him, but I wouldn't be surprised if, like last time, we saw Tsimikas come on at some point in the game, if not, if he doesn't start. I think Gravenberch continues his role as a defensive midfielder, as a number 6, but I do think that calling him the DM is kind of misleading. I don't see him as a defensive midfielder. I think that there's one thing that we learned from the Ipswich game is that he's more of a defensive deep line playmaker, so to speak. And I think that that's exactly what Liverpool were referring to when they said they want a more specialised number 6. I think they want somebody who is not only going to be winning the ball, but also being able to progress the ball further forward. So we saw quite a few times in the game, and it's one of Gravenberch's best skills, in my opinion, is that when he gets the ball, he's able to quickly turn and then progress the ball forward. He can turn away from a player, he can turn out of trouble, then he can start moving that ball further forward. And it wouldn't surprise me, to see him picking up the ball in these kind of regions here, turning and then driving the ball up here, then looking, can I bring Szoboszlai into play? Can I bring McAllister into play? Or, is there a long ball over to Salah, or is there a long ball over to the left-hand side? These are the kind of things that we're going to be looking from him from the very start. I thought he had a very good game. Whether he's the ideal number 6 for us going forward, that remains to be seen. But at least for this game, I'm comfortable keeping him in that role. So then the next position, I don't think there's going to be any real surprises if I can find them on here. Let's swap to position. It will be Dominic Szoboszlai that will start again, and it will also be Alexis McAllister. Again, no real surprises there. I thought McAllister probably didn't have the greatest of games, but bear in mind, he only played one game of pre-season, so he's quite new back to the squad, and, it is a case of getting him fully up to speed and fully back into the swing of things following his Copa America victory. Szoboszlai, I thought he had a good game. I think he was kind of underrated in his performance in the way that he did play. So I'd like to see Szoboszlai start the way the way he played the second half. There was a beautiful moment where the ball came into him from Trent, and he just kind of took the ball one way and then just laid it nicely for Trent to run into, and then Trent was able to then play the ball forward. So I'd like to see more of these little touches, these little passes around the corners, and I'd like to see a bit more physicality, that kind of engine, that physicality that he's got. Again, thinking back to the counter-attack that they had from the corner, he was busting a gut to make sure that he got back, used his intelligence to see where their striker was, positioned himself to cut off the passing lane. I think that, that's something that we're going to need to utilise this season, not just his ability, his little touches, his shooting ability, his ability to cross the ball, ping a pass across, but also that, that engine that has got to be able to get up and down the pitch when needed. On the left-hand side, I think that we're probably going to see Luis Diaz again. I still maintain that I do believe that Gakpo will become the long-term choice for that left wing position. It's not my thoughts on this aren't influenced on the fact of will Diaz stay, will Diaz go, the whole Barcelona rumours. My thoughts are purely on Slot's comments that he sees him as a left winger. I think if he sees him in that position, then he's already thought, in his head, in my team, I've got that position covered. I think Gakpo is probably a bit more, I think he probably suits this style a bit better. He's not so much a direct runner, although he can do that, but I think he's got that bit more technical ability to him, the ability to lay off a pass here, to see a pass there, and to play that little role. So, for example, if he is coming into sort of these positions, I think he can attack, from here much better than what Diaz can. Diaz is much more of a get the ball and run at a player and try and take a player on, which is great in certain circumstances, but there are other times when we need him to be that little bit smarter. The one thing that I think a few people now are getting frustrated from Diaz is his end product, and that's not just his ability to score goals, although he does need to up that tally. But for example, if you look at the chance where he lofted the ball onto the top of the net, there was an easy square ball onto Salah, and it's something that that perhaps a player like Salah spots that, but maybe a player like Diaz doesn't spot it, and in his head he just thinks goal, 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 and gets a little bit carried away. So I think we'll start with Diaz again in this game, but I would like to see Diaz up his game. We do need to see more from him. It's all good scoring 2 goals in a pre-season friendly, but if you're missing a handful of chances, or if you're not spotting a pass, I think there was also a moment where we had players in the box, and he ended up playing it straight to an Ipswich player. It's just having that that little bit extra in the attacking third, that final pass, that final decision that we need to be able to break through on goal. I think alongside him, we're also going to see, or on the right-hand side, Mo Salah. No real changes there. He played well. He was one of our best players. He still showed that even at his age, even with everything that's going around at the moment, he is world class. And I don't think that, we can realistically be thinking about not playing him yet. Plus, we don't seem to have a backup. Apparently, Ben Doak is available for sale. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Obviously, I think that they'll see Harvey Elliott as perhaps the backup to Salah if something does happen, such as him getting injured. But, Salah is pretty much undroppable from the team right now. And then I think it'll be Diogo Jota up front. I think, I've not seen anything to think that we'll start with Nunez. I think with Nunez, him not picking him wasn't his way of saying, oh, I don't favour you in this position. I think Nunez, obviously had the Copa America, he had an extended break, he only came back for the one game against Las Palmas. I don't know if he wasn't ready, with the training sessions that he'd been having, if Slot didn't think he was ready to play this game. But I do think that we'll probably see him at some point in the fixture against Brentford. So that remains to be seen when he'll get his start. But I think for Darwin, he's going to need to sort of earn the trust now. Obviously, we all know Darwin. We all love Darwin. He creates chaos. He creates this, he's such a willing runner and he works really hard, but we just need that end product to be more consistent. We know he's got a finish in him. Like, he scored some brilliant goals when he wants to. I'm thinking to the goal against Wolves that he scored, that little, that deft little touch that took it past the goalkeeper. The goal against, was it Bournemouth, where he, finessed it into the top corner. Like, he does have a finish in his locker. The 2 goals against Newcastle, but we just need to see that on a much more consistent basis from him. And I think because Jota does have that killer instinct, he does have that finish, and it is a lot more natural for him, we will see Jota from the start. On the bench, I don't think there's going to be much surprises here. I think the bench is pretty much going to be the same as last time, except to swap for Konate and Kwanzaa. I think Curtis Jones, Kwanzaa, Bradley, Harvey Elliott, Tsimikas, Gakpo, Darwin, and then the final one will be Endo. I know there's a lot of rumours around Gomez at the moment. Will he stay? Will he go? I know we've had an offer accepted for Sepp van den Berg, so there's a big question about whether or not Gomez is still in the manager's plans, even though we're willing to get rid of another defender. But I just think that having that backup in case something does happen to Gravenberch, or if we need more of a destroyer type defensive midfielder, I think Endo gets that nod. And then obviously looking at the rest of the pitch, we already have cover on a centre-back position in Jarell Kwanzaa. Robertson will have cover for him in Tsimikas, Trent with Bradley. I think that we don't need that extra defender on the bench at the moment. But I do think that, whether something happens to Gomez or not, in terms of whether we'll sell him or not, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of, do we look to bring in someone to replace Sepp van den Berg? And if so, will we go for an out-and-out centre-back, or will we look for someone a bit like, for example, Pierre Hincapié from Bayer Leverkusen, who can play centre-back but can also play left-back and offer us multiple positions, rather than just go in and fill in a gap that we've created by selling a player? So yeah, that's my predicted starting lineup and subs. As for the score, I've been and ahhing about this. I genuinely think it could be anything from sort of 1-0 up to 3-1. But I'm going to be a bit more sort of conservative for this one and say 2-0 to Liverpool. I think at Anfield, with the manager's first home league game, the crowd being back at Anfield for the Premier League, I think they're going to be buoyed. They're going to get right behind the team, and that's really going to help the team put on a good performance from the start. I think whilst Ipswich did have a few opportunities, I thought that the real chance they had was the header, which was saved by Alisson. That was the sort of the one that you think probably should have resulted in a goal from their point of view. But I think on the whole, we looked quite comfortable in terms of being able to keep a clean sheet. I think if we can start the way we finished the game against Ipswich, then we can be pretty comfortable, dominant from the off. look to go a goal up at least before half time and then play on from there before we start to see some changes. I expect to see Bradley coming on. I expect to see Tsimikas coming on. I also expect to see Gakpo coming on at some point. And I do think that we will see Darwin at some point in this fixture as well. So that's my predicted lineup and my predicted score. So I'm going 2-0 to Liverpool. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think the starting lineup will be? Do you agree with me, or do you think there will be some changes? And also, what's your prediction for the score as well? And I will catch everybody in the next one. Take care, and I'll speak to you all soon.